Hello, Matt Lemke here with your Gamer Goggles, gamer-goggles.com, and today I'm here with a very important question for those of you that might be wondering about what a tabletop RPG is. Basically, have you ever wanted to be something that you are not? If so, playing a tabletop RPG might be for you. If you're a thespian, or somebody who likes to tell stories or write stories, tabletop role-playing games might be a good outlet for you as well. Tabletop RPGs are about a community. They're not just about, telling a story or some rules or some mechanics. Basically, a tabletop RPG is a collaborative way of telling a story with a group of people or a very small community that are playing within a particular niche. There are a lot of different types of tabletop role-playing games. There's epic fantasy, there's low fantasy, there's heavy rules, crunchy kind of games, there's space operas, there's investigative ones, and we're not going to talk about a lot of those in depth. I will probably add some stories from my experiences through the course of this, but this today is for those of you that are interested in learning what tabletop role-playing is and how to get into the game. Basically, Through Gamer Goggles is a channel that attempts to demystify occasionally board games, but for the most part role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games, and introduce new players and old players into new systems that might be new for them, or new mechanics, or just to be better at telling their story in general. So every time you get together to play a tabletop role-playing game, there are certain things that need to be filled. Roles, so to speak. There is a GM, or a game master, or somebody who basically is the rules interpreter, because there are times, no matter how great the rules are written, that rules will need interpretation, and we might come back to that in a little bit. He also is the collaborative storyteller. Sometimes this is in the essence of a completely written story that you have purchased. Other times it's a story that this particular game master has created, or someone else has created, and he's running it. Sometimes you just sit down and you go ad lib and play for fun. Then there's the players and their characters. Every player at the table, well, the GM is technically a player also, but he has a slightly different role. Players are those that play a character. And depending on what kind of game you're playing, your character is going to have a different role. Almost every time you sit down to play a role-playing game, characters have a role within the group. Sometimes it's a really, really good idea to balance those roles. For example, you might have somebody who hits and does a lot of damage in combat, while you have another character that is really good at doing investigative stuff, or good at knowing things and having a lot of knowledge. Two extremes there. Now, players' ultimate goal is to tell the story through their character's eyes and leave their personal experiences behind in the real world. That is key. Metagaming, which is the idea of the knowledge of what you're bringing to the table from your personal life, can ruin gameplay to a degree. For example, you're playing a game in the Civil War, and maybe you're smart with chemistry, and you know how to make penicillin. So you put it into the game, pitch it to your GM, but it's not something your character would have had the knowledge to make during the Civil War. And maybe my history is wrong on the timing there, but you get the idea, I hope. If you don't get the idea, hey, please, at this point in time, like, subscribe, share, post comments below. And then there are a lot of ways that the mechanics come into play with your players. And sometimes it makes the game a lot more collaborative. So you may have different motives for different players that are going to do different things. you often will have to, I'm going to back up a step here. When you make a character, because you do create them, you often have a character sheet, whether it's written down on a piece of paper or whether it is something that is printed off and not custom made, but you will always have a way. The mechanics of the game are often performed through dice rolls. There are a lot of different ways to do this. There are dice rollers that randomly generate your die roll on computers or tablets or your phone, or you can actually physically roll with dice. Do I have any dice here? No, I don't have any dice within reach. They're way over there. The rules are the framework for gameplay and are basically the structure of the world around you minus the environmental impact and influence of the everyday life and culture. These mechanics basically create the guide for players and NPCs to become heroic. They're often broad and really just a guide. There will always be situations that arise where the rules interpreter, the GM, may need to do something because of things that are being stretched. A good example in a high fantasy game is that your character might want to make a long jump and you might have to calculate it, or be like, it came up a lot in Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 where we would do the math and be like, wow, that's really a lot. And the mechanics stretch the truth and make the character seem more heroic. But then there will be times where your character from a player tries to do something that's very, very far-fetched, and you have to step in and interpret whether or not the rules really want something that crazy to happen. And the rules, I should mention, vary significantly from one game system to the other. There are game systems that have dice with nothing but symbols on them. There are game systems that use dice from a D3 all the way up to a D100, but that's really 2 dice. There are game systems that use coins to flip. And there are all different ways of telling story. There are game systems that are very mechanically crunchy on telling the story and using skills and things to do that. And then there are more narrative versions of the game. And these narrative versions of the games are the ones that focus much more on the characters rather than the rules and the mechanics. But the rules and mechanics still need to exist for this. It's important to note that the heart of tabletop role-playing games is to form collaborative storytelling with your friends and the people that you're trying to tell this story with. The challenge, once you get involved and get moving, is telling your character story and interacting with the other character's story while you are all collaboratively questing, I'm going to use questing, for one final goal and outcome while you're growing your characters. To steal from literature a little bit, I think I'll use Frodo. Frodo's ultimate goal was to get the ring to the end. All along that journey, he had all these trials with the ring and burdens and everything else. Now Sam, his buddy, his best friend, helped him carry this burden. And his ultimate goal was to, again, destroy the ring with Frodo, even though that was Frodo's burden. He was the support character there the whole time, interacting for and through Frodo to help him accomplish his task. There's different roles for different characters and different personalities for each character at the table. The challenge is, again, not to play yourself through the character. Imagination will often trump a lot of the rules. So if you have something that's borderline in the rules, a lot of times your GM will say, "Yeah, you know what? I like that. I'm going to allow it because the rules aren't very clear." And improvisation. You are going to have to improvise a lot. I think one of the best examples for me was challenging GM to I wanted to make a Robin Hood-esque character in a game, and the hard part we had was doing all the running around on tables and stuff to make him feel like he was Robin Hood in combat, which was actually really difficult to do with that rule set. Now, typically, the session works, well, there's a lot of pre-work actually for the Game Master. The Game Master has to do some things. Well, first, I think the Game Master has to have the interest of players to want to play the game. Second, the GM has to prepare the campaign in sessions. If you're playing a full-blown campaign, that might be several sessions. It could be a couple of years, depending on how often you play. With that said, you can play a one-shot, which is something that you're designed to, that you just buy off the shelf in your local game store, and then you sit down and the GM prepares it, and everybody shows up with a character of the appropriate skill level, because not every game has skill levels or character levels. Some games have like tiers. Some games don't have a level system at all. So you sit down with a character that has the appropriate experience to play in this particular adventure. And it's always a good idea to talk with your GM to find out if the character that you want to play is a good fit for the storyline. For example, if I was playing a science fiction game and I wanted to show up with a barbarian from the Middle Ages, he would probably frown upon that. And try and convince me that I'm not going to have fun. And I probably wouldn't, because one thing about, you know, the difference between a fantasy setting and a space opera setting is ranged weapons make a big, big difference. Now, the first thing the GM has to do is, well, prepare. This can take 4 to 8 hours easily to prepare for a 4-hour session, especially if the game system is new to the Game Master. With that said, the next thing is setting the scene, and this usually starts by getting all the characters together in one place and having them meet. This can sometimes be done in a what people call a session 0, which is basically before the adventure actually begins, and the players get together, they get to play around with characters and develop their personalities and see how they're going to interact with everyone else. So you might have a very religious individual here, and then you might have an atheist in the group. How are those two guys going to mingle? And you guys can start to figure that out and play it before you actually get into the adventure and have certain stresses of things happening in the adventure that are going to distract you from that kind of player tension. Players will always have the option, well, they're always going to be describing what they're doing. Sometimes less detail is better, but sometimes you really want to get cinematic, especially in combat, I think. There's times when you roll a check, and I think it's better that the GM steps in and does the description of what happened, because you don't necessarily always know the result of your check. You don't know the difficulty of what you're attempting to do, so you might have a really good roll and nothing happens, so you're like, well, that's a bummer. Or you might have a really bad roll and think that the trap is not, the trap or the lock is not pickable, for example. And then the GM can step in and explain it in a way that fits the flavor of the story. Basically, the GM will usually describe the rooms you're in, the setting of the story, the environment. Is it raining? He or she will read in the tension of the area you're in. If it's dark, if it's gloomy, they'll always be the ones setting the scene from room to room. From action to action, they will describe things. They control the non-player characters, which are support characters in the story. Sometimes they're villains, sometimes they're good guys, sometimes they're just people you meet at random because you walked up to somebody and started talking to them. And they basically are responsible for all the bad guys and the mini-bosses and the bosses. A simple scenario would be a party of players goes into a bar. at different times maybe, and they end up meeting there because someone comes in to hire a group of people to go to the Bandits' Keep and rescue a hostage. Simple scenario. So they gear up, they head out of town, they go to the Bandit Keep, and they attempt to fight off the bandits and whatever other vile creatures they may find, and rescue the hostages. Maybe the hostages were all a ploy for something greater that leads into another part of the story. Maybe you're not supposed to rescue the hostages. Maybe they're already supposed to be dead. Or maybe the hostages do get rescued and you just get your reward and you move on to something else. You become town heroes. Me personally, I play tabletop RPGs. I think the older I get, it's not so much about this. Well, so I've been playing a long time. I've been playing since like the mid '80s. I started with first edition Dungeons and Dragons, the red box. And the first time I played, it was because I was asked to play, and I really didn't understand what was going on. And the second time I played with my brother. He was practicing. He was practicing the pre-module to not Undermountain. Temple of Elemental Evil. Yes, I played the Temple of Elemental Evil in 3rd grade. And it was a dire experience, but wonderful. When I was a kid, we got together, and it was an outlet for us to hack and slash, because that's really how we played. As I matured, it was much more about storytelling, telling stories, and now, if I'm a player, it's much more about building a character than it is about telling a whole story. That's my job as the GM. I do a lot of creating. I do a lot of creating as a player, and I have always ways to develop my character. That is one reason why people play tabletop RPGs, and that is to have a creative outlet. It also involves a tremendous amount of social interaction. So it will actually help, like for me, I think for me as a kid, it helped with social skills. I got together with people of like minds. We challenged ourselves, we pushed ourselves. I was very much ADHD as a kid. Back then we didn't know what it was called. I believe that role-playing games and the martial arts helped me get where I'm at and get through college. Role-playing games helped me learn to spell better. They helped me with a lot of critical thinking. Some math. Back then the math wasn't crazy. Some of the games have much crazier math now. So it is a great avenue for social interaction and building social skills, and it helps critical thinking. Especially if you are in a dungeon where there's a lot of riddles, a lot of puzzles, or space opera where you have to do different things to unlock doors, and instead of making it a skill check, it's turned into some kind of a puzzle that you have to interact with your whole team to figure out. You could do word puzzles, you could do math puzzles, all kinds of things. Some people play RPGs just to practice improv or become more adaptable. You can easily apply, this is going to sound crazy, but you can apply situations in role-playing games to real life. I'm not saying that you're going to ever fight a dragon in real life, but I'm saying that things that you did in the situation to learn how to think quick, and things that you have done. I'm trying to think of an actual situation where I did something like that. There was a time where I was in a pit at work, and the wall was barricaded and braced, but the 1 2x4 brace broke. So what I had to do is get the heck out of there or be buried alive. I launched my leg off the ground, lost a boot doing it, put my foot on the 2x4 that was bracing the other wall, and I launched myself over the side that was collapsing. And that was actually something that I did in a role-playing game. Well, very similar. I wanted to go higher, so there was a little ledge. I used the ledge to launch myself off of it. Another thing that makes role-playing games something that's very cool and effective is just the amount of, I need to relax. You escape from reality for a few moments. In some ways, it just takes the edge off of your stress. Like some people will have a shot of whiskey, some people will have a beer. Others need to be creative to do it, and doing it with other people makes it all the merrier. And any time that you can step into a world like that, you're going to probably find some exciting adventures. Of course, this is dependent upon the people you're playing with. And the last thing, and probably one of the more important things, is it builds your self-esteem. When you complete challenges in a role-playing game, irregardless of what the role-playing game is, you feel like you've accomplished something. That's why I'm starting to think as a GM that sometimes shorter games are better games for your group. We're currently playing a mega dungeon, which is massive. Mega dungeon meaning, big. And we've been playing for 2.5 years. Sometimes I feel it's too much. My kids and the other players are having a blast. And when I say my kids, they're 26 and 27. So I'm doing something right that the group wants to get together and continue to play that. It's going to be the last mega dungeon I make for quite a while. Now, I said I was going to talk about other tabletop RPGs. There are a lot of them out there. Right now, as of, what is today? July 13th, 2025. Daggerfall seems like it's the new hot madness. It is a D20 system, I think. I haven't picked it up yet. But I understand that character creation is very different than what most people are used to, and a lot of people from Dungeons and Dragons, which is probably the king right now of tabletop role-playing games, are jumping ship to go play Daggerfall. Rifts is a multi-dimensional role-playing game that is a D20 system that you have everything. I mean, literally, you have everything. You have magic, you have psionics, you have monsters, you have espionage, you have investigative stuff, you have superhumans, you have guns that do thousands of points of damage to normal things. You have super vehicles, you have dragons, said magic, and you have stuff with outer space. It's amazing. You have Pathfinder 2. Well, you have Pathfinder 1, Pathfinder 2, which is basically like Dungeons and Dragons, epic fantasy set in a different game world. It focuses on an action economy, which is based off of 3 actions around, and you go and you play. Dungeons and Dragons uses the advantage system, which basically you can earn advantages where you roll 2 dice instead of 1 die, use your D20, and take the better of the 2 rolls. And if you have a disadvantage, you roll 2 dice and the GM takes the worst of the 2. GURPS has been around for a long time, very successful role-playing game. Free League makes Twilight 2000, Aliens, which they're just coming out with their 2nd edition. Actually, I think fulfillment will be later this year. They just kickstarted 2nd edition. The One Ring, and they have Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition crossovers. Plus, they have Blade Runner, which is really looking phenomenal. There's G.I. Joe, Power Rangers, Transformers, Outbreak Undead, Tales from the Loop, and a ton of other role-playing games. There's so many role-playing games out there. I could probably fill a terabyte of hard drive with all the rule books. Okay. When you go to get started, first thing you have to do is find a group. When you're finding a group, I think the challenge is finding people that want to be committed to it selling it, it's not really hard. A lot of people will post something at their local game store, but that doesn't always work. It's usually best to get some friends or some people at work that might want to experience it, and let them give it a try. Start with a one-shot. If it's a totally new group, you know, they may have fun, but they might not like the setting, so they might get into a different type of game. I would suggest that you choose a game that's well supported. Now, what does well supported mean? I mean a game that has a lot of rules support, is still in print, still being published, and is still growing. So there are games out there where they're on their second or their third edition, and they just keep, every time they run out of print, they just print it over, and they're not growing the rules base or the environment base by extra story. So right now, I think the biggies are anything by Free League Publishing, which is The One Ring, Lord of the Rings for 5th edition, Dungeons and Dragons, a lot of their stuff, Pathfinder 2, Aliens is coming up here in the near future, Blade Runner, that's all Free League. Those are the biggies. Oh, I don't know if I said Riffs. Riffs actually is made by Palladium Books, and they have several RPGs that they support and have been supporting for over 35 years. So those are good places to start. So I would not be here today talking about things like this if I did not start playing. I wouldn't be the gamer I am if I didn't start playing role-playing games in 3rd grade. I mean, they inspired me enough that I actually wrote my own role-playing game in 6th grade, which was absolute crap. I wish I still had the rules though. And I mean, it has led to a lot of opportunities for me. Now I want to still tell more stories. I'm writing, I'm working on a novella, and hopefully I will have a contract later this year. There's no limit to where it can go. And the people that I have met over the last, I'm going to go with 20 years. No, I got to go with, so that was 2000, 2.5. I'll go with about 35 years, because some people found out I did it in college, and they're like, hey, you ever play this? You ever play this? I don't even know how they found out. I went to a Bible college, and I met people that I would not have met at college. And then I opened a game store, and I ran some Dungeons and Dragons stuff for Wizards of the Coast, and I met a plethora of people. And then I started going to conventions, and it's off the charts what it can do. I think the most positive thing about RPGs really is how much it inspires me to write, and this is for me, and the community of people that I have met and know and talk to me about things. It has made me confident enough that I could mentor people that want to become better writers, and all those things of that nature. So I think for the most part, the impacts that I have had have all been positive from it. They have helped me become a better person, more rounded, and things of that nature. So please, guys, if you like this video and you're still here, like, subscribe, and share. We're going to do a lot more talking about RPGs, and there's so much I want to share in the RPG things, from creating worlds to creating characters. I just need to get things in order with my life, like remodeling my garage ceiling. My dad's not in a good place. I need to balance that, and things of that nature. Anyway, if you have any questions about what a tabletop RPG is, please comment below. There are a lot of things that you may not have understood that are just common terms that I overlooked, that I didn't define, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Thanks, and have a great day. Hi guys, meet the Nibbles, who's gonna go down. She just decided not to go down my back, so we'll do this for her so she's comfy. Thanks for watching my video, and I appreciate it. Please hit the like button. and share it if you know somebody who might be interested. And of course, there's always Twitter and the Facebook thingy, and soon I have a newsletter coming. That'll be down there or in a link below, and my kitty cat loves that idea. So anyway, there was one more thing. Oh yeah, subscribe. Be a part of my community, our community. Let's make it grow together. See you guys at a con somewhere, or a local store, or if I'm driving through the country, maybe a game club. I don't know, you're not going to go knock down my camera. Bye, guys.